Hello. The nice people at Runcam have sent me a Runcam Eagle FPV camera to take a look at. So in this video I'm going to compare it I'm going to compare it to the Runcam Owl, which I looked at a few months ago. And I'm also going to compare it, I'm going to make a side-by-side video comparison with this one, which is the PZ0420M, I think this one is. And this is the one that a lot of people are using, something that's going to be very, very similar to this. I think this is also the Runcam Swift is pretty much the same as this, and the HS1177 I think is also pretty much the same as this too. So that should be a good one to do in a side-by-side video comparison with. As for just comparing the body of the camera itself, I'm going to mostly compare it with this one because they're a little bit more similar. So this camera comes in this one is a 4x3. Oh, where is it? Well, it doesn't say there, but I think this 4:3 means it's a 4x3 screen aspect ratio. But you can also get it in a 16:9 aspect ratio. So that'll be good news for a lot of people who have the 16:9 goggles, which I don't have actually. So this is fine for me, the 4x3 ratio. And this is about 140 degree. Oh, it does say there. Sorry, 4x3. Yeah, 140 degrees field of view. Right. So let's just have a quick look at them. First thing you might notice, you might not notice it in the video actually, but the colors are slightly different, and that's because the Owl is a plastic case and the Eagle is a metallic magnesium alloy or something fancy like that. And not sure if it's as a result of that or not, but the colors are slightly more vibrant on the Eagle. This one is more of an orange, and this was a bit more like the Dayglow color that you see, the high-vis clothing that people wear at construction sites and something. It's a little bit more like that to look at. The case, the mounting style has changed, and I wasn't too happy to see this actually because I didn't look at it closely, and I just assumed that it was going to be the same as the Owl, which has these sort of nipple looking things on the side, and I like that because you don't need a screw, although I think it might actually be threaded inside there. I'll just get this damn thing to focus. I'm not sure there's threads inside there or not, but the point is that you don't need a thread to stick this into a little hole in like the hole inside there to mount it, and then you only need 2 screws for this to mount it and adjust it and stuff. So that is kind of nice. But for the Eagle you're going to need 4 screws, 2 on each side, to mount it properly. You might be able to get away with 2 on each side, I mean 1 on each side, but I don't think so. It wouldn't be very secure. So that's kind of, I don't really like it too much that way. Another thing I'm not a big fan of is the way that they have changed these connectors. They are at the top at least, which is nice. I prefer them at the top. But the OSD, or the what do you call it, the configuration little joystick thingy that you use to set up the just change the settings, has been changed from a 2-pin plug to a 6-pin plug. And all of the Runcams, I think, that I've used at least until now, I've just had this 2-pin plug there for changing the settings, and that was really good because you can just take one of them out with you when you're going out somewhere, and that will be enough to change all of your cameras. But now you're going to have to take 2 if you have one of these and one of these. You're going to need 2 cables. They have also changed it, or I don't know if changed it is quite right, but at least comparing these 2 cameras, it's gone from a 5S capable power input to a 4S, so up to 17 volts on that one. It's probably not a big deal. I don't think many people are using 5S anyway. Just thought I'd point that out. And around here on the front, the lenses seem to be the same size. So this is about 18. I think you need about 18 millimeters across if you want to have space to put that through somewhere. Apart from that, I think that's all the changes taken care of there. And it's 17 grams like that, so it's a little bit heavier. I think the Owl is 14 grams or so. So the rest of the stuff here, as I mentioned, there goes my voice again. This thingy is different as well, which is, again, it's a little bit of a nuisance because these are not going to be compatible now. So you can see that it might be the same height in the middle. Yeah, the middle bit, yeah, it looks about the same height, doesn't it? But the diameter of the arc is different, and the thickness of the arc is slightly different as well. So they're not going to be compatible, which is a bit of a bummer. What else do you get? Oh, this bottom part is the same. That's exactly the same. Well, it's not going to focus, but that bit is the same. So that's nice. In here you get a bunch of little screws and some nylon washers and some brass inserts for something or other. And these are no longer Phillips head screws. They've changed these to be hex nuts or hex head screws, if you know what I mean. So that's why there's a little Allen key in there with them. You have this for video output and power, and it just goes into these little breadboard kind of connectors. So that's great for, it's silicone wire, I think. That's nice, isn't it? And I usually just cut that off and solder it to wherever it has to go. There's one of these which is useful again for testing on the bench. Usually you can use that, and that's power and video out there. The barrel connector. And then we have the 6-pin OSD adjusting, what's the name? This piece doesn't look any different to the other ones, so I'm not sure why. Yeah, it's just the same. I don't know why they had to change that from 2 pins to 6. And that's it. That's everything. So let's have a look at the website or the web page for this. It's $65 at the current time, which is a little bit pricey, isn't it? And as I mentioned before, there are 16:9 and 4:3 variants, and I have the 4:3. You can get black and orange. It has this thing called Global Wide Dynamic Range, which I will take a stab at explaining in a minute, if anyone is interested. It's a little bit boring to explain, so I'll put something on the video so that you can skip it, so that you know where to skip to. But here's a side-by-side comparison. It might not be exactly obvious what the wide dynamic range is doing there. Here's one that's probably a little bit faked, but it gives a better picture of what it's trying to do. I hope it really does work like that. That'd be great, wouldn't it? Oh, it's a 800 TV line camera, by the way. And yes, magnesium alloy shell. What else was I going to look at here? Nothing really. I guess, yeah, you can look at this yourself. So here are the specs of the two cameras that I'm going to be comparing. They're slightly different in that one is NTSC, one is PAL. One is 2.8mm. What is that? Sort of like about 90 degrees field of view, is it? And the other one is 140 degrees. So you will see some differences in sort of the amount of view that they can put into the frame. But that shouldn't really matter, because what we're mainly looking at here is the way they treat brightness and colors, isn't it? Sorry, slight change of plans. Instead of the board camera version of the PZ0420, I'm going to be using this one, which is the Runcam Sky Plus, and it is for all intents and purposes the same as the PZ0420M, just in a slightly different form factor, and it has a metal case as well. And this one is IR sensitive, and this one is, the Eagle is IR blocked. So that's another difference that I forgot to mention just a moment ago. And this one here, as we can see, this is the page for it on Runcam's site. Not exactly sure what they mean by optimized. I think it just means that it's smaller than the board camera to fit into the case. But apart from that, it has better RF shielding and heat dissipation. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but as far as I can tell, electrically and like the lens and everything, the sensor and all that stuff is the same as the normal PZ0420. So most of what I just said before about the differences between this and the Eagle should still apply. Oh, and the reason for making that change was because basically I want to make up a nice little mounting thing that I can put on the quadcopter and fly around, with these two things attached, so it'll be not too much bigger than the size of a GoPro, so I'm hoping to fit it in my little GoPro mount on the front of my quadcopter. And to do that, it's much easier to have a flat-backed camera, so both of these are now flat-backed and they can be stuck onto a mount very nice and compactly. So that's the only reason that I wanted to use this one over the board camera. Unfortunately, I've hit a bit of a snag here. This HM DVR mini DVR unit that I got seems to have completely died. Not even the LED is coming on, and I have no idea why, because the reason I have two of these is to do exactly this kind of testing. So I've been treating them pretty much exactly the same since I got them. So I'm guessing this is just some sort of a defect in the unit, because the other one is still working fine. So I guess I'll just have to buy another one and wait for it to arrive. So as far as the menu layout is concerned, I probably wouldn't mention this, and I didn't mention it in my Runcam Owl Plus review because these menus are pretty much all the same, but I am going to take a look at it in this review because it looks like they've done a complete rewrite of the menu system. As you can see, maybe right off the bat, the fonts are different, and we've got this pink background behind the thing that we're selecting, and there's only one branching menu from this first screen, which is the one I'm looking at now, with the arrow key. So I'm just going to go into that, and we see all of our options here, most of our options here, and we can go into another page where it says, there was a bug landed on the screen or something. So the arrow, the return arrow like that, takes you to another screen. So that part of it is as before, but what they've changed is, for example, in this one here where it says auto, if I go right to change this to auto, from auto to manual, it pops up another row. So that row expands, and I can now change this to a manual value. So they've given the menus some dynamic sort of changing features like that. So that part is new. And I also noticed that there are a lot of autos everywhere. So there was the auto we just saw, and then if we look in here, there is auto and manual settings for detail and edge. I haven't noticed the detail to change anything at all, by the way, but the edge, I'll see if I can, it's a bit tricky with the best thing to check this edge on is those trees over there, but let's see if we can do it like that. There we go. 15 is the maximum. When I change it to 0, I'll just switch between 15 and 0, and you can see that there's some edge detection going on, and it's exaggerating the edges of those tree branches in the distance. Makes them a little bit easier to see in most cases. But it also gives you a sort of a pixelated effect in, where you have straight lines. You can sort of see the anti-aliasing on the edges of the straight lines. I'll see if I can put a screenshot of something a bit more obvious what I'm talking about over the video at this point. So I didn't like this degree of edge detection, so I turned this down to about halfway. I think about, actually a little bit. I'll leave it there at 4. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot more auto settings. So this one's also auto. Everything else I've left at auto, and it seems to be really good. And other stuff is just the same. Oh, there's this one here is new. Zoom in. So I can zoom in. Immediately we lose our wide dynamic range. Actually, before I do that, let's just look at the wide dynamic range. Let's turn this off and on. Now I think I've noticed this wide dynamic range option in the menus of the other cameras, and turning it off never made anything that bad. So I think they may just be exaggerating this a little bit. I'll compare this on the Sky Plus in a minute, and I'll show you turning wide dynamic range on and off doesn't make anywhere near this much difference. Anyway, so back to what I was saying about, what was I saying? Oh, zoom in, yeah. So zoom in is a bit of a strange feature, but we can zoom in like this up to level 5, I think, yeah. Except that when we're zoomed in, we don't have wide dynamic range, which is a little strange. So I don't know why you would need to zoom in, because this seems to me something like you might find in a security camera. And if we were using a camera that had been repurposed from an existing security camera format, then this would be understandable. But I don't see why it's here in a purpose-built FPV camera. Anyway, so that is the menu system. Okay, and now I'm using the Sky Plus, and if I turn wide dynamic range on and off here, you'll see it doesn't make anywhere near as much difference as it did on the Eagle. This sort of gives me the impression that they may be intentionally exaggerating the effect of the switching on the Eagle, because it should be at least this good, I would have thought. It's not that bad with it off here. So I don't know, maybe it's a bit of marketing to make you go, wow, when you switch it on. Who knows? Okay, so it's about a week and a half later now, and I have replaced this DVR unit, so I have 3 of these now. Well, one that doesn't work, I suppose. And I've attached the cameras on there with double-sided tape, and they are looking fairly secure. I'm not going to do any super crazy flying like this, of course, just in case it I think a decent crash would rip something off. And on the back here we have a bunch of wires, and they're just sort of yellow ones are going from the camera to the DVR, and then we have a few sets of negative and positive to power everything, and I have a 2-cell LiPo on there to give it power, and it connects up like that, all out of the way of the props, hopefully. So I just thought I'd give you a look at this before I go out and do the testing, because, you know, in a few minutes it could be all in little pieces all over the grass. So yeah, anyway, hopefully it stays intact and I can use this in any future tests if I so need to. I started off with just a little test walking around the house. It was quite a nice sunny day this day, so it gave me the opportunity to test how it does facing the sun. And you can see right away that it does very, very well. It reduces the blob of the sun to a much smaller point, and you get a lot more detail in the clouds as well. In this particular footage, the settings of the Sky Plus have been customized. I copied somebody's settings that I found on a YouTube video that worked out very well for me, and I noticed that it was putting up a pretty good fight compared to the Eagle, so I thought I'd just do this first before I reset it to the defaults, because I thought the defaults probably wouldn't work as well. But if anybody's interested in exactly what the settings were for the Sky Plus in this case, I'll put a video. I took a little video so that I could revert to those settings afterwards, and I'll put a link to that video in the description so you can see what the settings were. Now here's some footage taken with both cameras set to all defaults. So this is how they would come out of the box. It's important to note that the Sky Plus comes out of the box with wide dynamic range off, and the Eagle comes with wide dynamic range on by default. So it's not really a fair comparison. So after this, I switched the Sky Plus wide dynamic range on and left all the other settings at defaults. But I thought I'd just show you this because the Sky Plus is still not doing too bad, I think. Now here's a low light situation. I didn't really do much of this because this is not really the focus of the Eagle. It's supposed to be a bright light sort of daytime camera, but I thought I'd just do a little bit of it. And you can see it does very well probably due to the wide dynamic range being quite good. It does switch into black and white much quicker than the Sky Plus, though, of course. The Sky Plus is actually IR sensitive. Here's a little more of what I guess you could call low light testing. I just pointed it at the sunset and recorded it for as long as the DVR would go, which was about an hour and a half. And you can see, this is actually sped up at the moment, but you can see if you look at the building in the distance, you can see more of the details on the side of the building in the Eagle view than you can on the Sky Plus view. And I'll just speed up the rest of it here from this point so you can see the way it changes all the way to darkness. So after having gotten some footage by just walking around, I felt a little bit more comfortable about risking maybe breaking one of these cameras, or heaven forbid even one of the DVRs again. And I strapped it to my mini quad like this, and I flew around for a bit, and I've arranged the 3 images that you'll see in the next screen like this. So there's the Sky Plus with default settings except for wide dynamic range on, will be in the top left. In the top right you'll see the Eagle with default settings, and in the bottom, since I had it available and I was using this one to fly with, I thought I might as well record this as well, and I'll put this in the bottom as just a small picture. This is the Runcam Swift, and I set this one up on an overcast day to just some settings that I thought were good. So it's not really set up for a sunny day as such, but it still does pretty well. So most of what I'm doing in this flight is trying to give it scenes where there are large ranges of contrast, which usually means facing towards the sun and putting something in between you that has a dark side to it. No, not like Star Wars. I mean, you are on the dark side of the tree or whatever it is that's in the way. So that's what I'm doing here, I think. And I'm also, at one point I go and look at the pink. There's some trees with pink leaves. Actually leaves, not flowers. They look like flowers because they're so pink. But I just wanted to sort of get a look at the colour of those, I think. And I also did some flips just to see how quickly the brightness can adjust when you flip, and the end of your flip you're looking straight at the sun. You want that to sort of adjust the brightness quickly in that situation. Immediately after this I took the DVRs off and I put the Xiaomi Yi HD camera on, and I flew around to most of the same spots that I just visited in this video, and I'll put a link to that video in the description if you want to have a look at what this looks like from an HD camera at this time of day with this angle of the sun and this sort of weather and everything, just for comparison. I mean, I think you'll agree that in pretty much any situation the Eagle gives you a much better viewing experience, much more pleasant viewing experience. Here we can see that the Eagle takes a little bit longer to adjust the brightness when you finish a flip. The Sky Plus is almost instantaneous, but you know, there's a bit of a trade-off, of course, because the result is not as good for the Sky Plus. Well, we're getting near the end of the footage that I have to show you, so I suppose while we're looking at this I can summarize my thoughts about this camera. I really like it. I think I was going to say it's a tad expensive at $65 as it was about 2 weeks ago when I started making this video, but I just noticed that it's actually $55 now on Banggood and also on Runcam's site as well, so I think that's pretty good. The best way I could describe this viewing experience is it feels less like I'm viewing something through a camera and more like I'm actually looking at it in person. just because of the way the wide dynamic range works closer to the way the human eye works. And when you're looking at cameras like this, you realize how very good the human eye does actually do this kind of thing. And it also gets the colors more accurate to reality as well. So both of those two things put together, I feel make it really nice experience. I did also fly my quad using this camera as the FPV camera because I wanted to check the latency, and I actually got halfway through my second battery before I remembered what I was supposed to be checking, which kind of tells you that the latency is not really an issue. And I did do some sort of fast flips and rolls and everything, and maybe if you were a super pro like the Rotor Riot guys, maybe you might notice a problem, but for my level of skill, it was not an issue at all. So yeah, I think you can see the rest of what you need to know by looking at these side-by-side comparisons. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a buy. It looks like I have a little more time to fill here, so I'll just mention a few of the cons that I came across as well. I think I've mentioned all of these actually, but the old case style, so that's the case that they give you on the Owl Plus and the Swift, with the little nipple bits on the side of the case. I like that case style much better than the one that they have on the Eagle. The OSD display, when you're changing the settings for the camera, the text, as we saw, is too thin and needs a black background to be able to see properly. Not a huge deal. And also the cable that is now a 6-pin cable for the OSD menu, that kind of sucks. I don't know why they had to do that. The old cable with 2 pins was great. And I also found that when I actually started using it, the 6-pin cable, because it has 6 wires going through it, it's quite thick and it's very stiff. So it's hard to, once you've got your camera inside your quad, you're trying to plug the OSD cable in from the back. It's really hard to bend the new thick cable in and plug it into the back of your camera inside the quad. Whereas the old cable, just two wires inside it, was quite flexible and very easy to do that with. I was actually hoping to get this video up a day earlier, but my laziness kind of paid off in a way, because the next day was very overcast, so that gave me an opportunity to do just one more little test to see how things look on a not so sunny day. And it's actually raining as I'm walking around here, of course. What else? I should stop complaining about that after having one nice day. But yeah, I guess you can see for yourself. Yeah, look at it. What does it look like to you? Anyway, I hope you found this informative. Thanks for watching.